Welcome to Culmination, where we're not experts, but we sure have a lot to say. In the process of becoming our best self, I have with me the saxophonist Arjun Pathe to discuss friendships. And with that, let's get started. So my first question to you, Arjun, is how would you define a friendship?
Well, I think there are many kinds of relationships that you can have with other people, but a friendship is someone that you can discuss your problems to. I don't, I
Hmm.
personally don't consider a friendship just people that you hang out with or just spend a little bit of time with here and there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can be friendly with someone, but that doesn't really count as a friendship to me.
Yeah. So do you mind elaborating on that more?
A lot of people you'll just see at school, you might sit at their table, you might chat it up, you might hang out sometimes, but um you can't have too many friends. If you spread yourself, like, too thin, you can't have, like, a lot of meaningful relationships. So, I
Hmm.
feel like well, there's not, like, a set number, but, like, around 10, 15 friends is what I'd consider, like, the boundary. And anything past that is just kind of like, a nice acquaintance or someone that I'm close to.
Yeah. And would you say an acquaintance is a friend?
Um, if there's someone that, like, I talk to them about my problems or they talk to me about their problems. We just have, like, meaningful conversations with, then yeah, I'd say they're my friend.
Okay. So it's more about like this almost like an alliance of trust.
Yeah, I'd say that. Usually with trust, it's especially important to try to be the first person to establish that trust.
Okay.
Uh, because usually when you're like building relationships with people, if you're the first person to show um, that you can divulge parts of yourself to the other person, you'll be better friends with them quicker. If that's your goal, I mean.
Yeah, just kind of like setting the base, the foundation earlier and kind of just knowing what you want because that just gets you further.
Right. But there is like a certain level to where you can't just like you're meeting someone for the first time. You can't just like tell them everything about yourself because like there's like two types of trust. One is like I trust this person with kind of a little bit under surface level details, and then the second is like a trust that you need to build over like a long time with just
Yeah.
like being around that person.
I'm glad you said that because I 100% agree with like kind of those two trusts. I feel like in the way that I would define it is it's like there's information trust. Like I can tell you like, "Oh, I got an A plus on my math test," or "I scraped my knee from an embarrassing accident," or something. Like just telling them something minuscule or even large. Um, but then there's also the trust that you defined that is definitely the more subtle, timely one. And timely as in it takes time to develop because it's more of your bond.
Right. Like that deeper trust, you can't really you do have to go through the first phase of trust before you go to the second, but it'll take like a while for that to develop. Um,
Mhm.
I feel like you even though you do need trust to have like a good friendship, I feel like being friends with someone is important before you can actually start building that trust. So like stepping into the water first, or having them step into the water first. You need that before you can actually start building trust, because otherwise you both will just be like metaphorically like outside the pool and you guys won't ever start getting to like deeper topics.
That's a good point because it's just like you need to establish something before you can establish any of the trust. Well, you could have information trust be an establishment clause to your friendship, but I mean, usually it's common interest or a shared goal. So, like, for instance, we both worked on a short film together and we
Mhm.
made friends just by having that shared goal of we need to get a movie done in a certain amount of time. So, I need to work with this person, not only do my job and everything, but like deal with people as well. But when you're dealing with people to have a good time, you want to get along with them and get to know them, and eventually you'll become friends with them too. And that applies to any activity. You know, like if you're on the baseball team or the soccer team or working at Wendy's or anything else. I don't know why
Yeah,
we keep bringing up Wendy's on this
I
podcast.
do love Wendy's though. I could use a 4 for 4 right now. Anyway, um, trust that's built through like communal activities is really good because um, you can get examples that shows their reliability. Like some people, they might skimp off doing some work, or they might just like not be very helpful, and then that's like your impression of them. Even when you're not trying to be friends with them, you can like kind of build like a trust and understanding of like, will this person is this person reliable enough for me to consider a friendship with?
Yeah, I sure love people who,
Shut up.
who are very committed to things.
Listen, dude, I'm the most committed, the best.
Right, but that's a good point. It's like you can witness through an activity, this is how they behave in certain situations, but also just in general.
Yeah, if you get like someone that's like, oh, that's not in my department, and then just leave when you need their help, then you can't really. Um, that person might be just an acquaintance instead of someone that you might consider a friend.
Right, because there might be some points where you feel like, not only do I really want to pursue this person further, like with a more meaningful, deeper friendship or relationship, but it's also like, can I really do that? Like there
Yeah,
might be some setbacks.
like so. First impression is really important, especially when like setting your boundaries. Like when I mentioned before, like taking that first step into the water. With some people, if my first impression of them is bad, like say I think they like tell people stuff a lot, I'll either make that first step like kind of shallow, like I won't tell them a lot, or I won't be like very trusting with that, or I just like won't step in at all.
Yeah, first impressions are definitely important, but I do want to ask you, is a first impression exactly make or break?
Like a relationship. Um,
Or just like a friendship or any dynamic? Like, if
I've
you
had
had a
bad.
horrible first impression, like you were in a job interview or you were just talking to some guy on your baseball team or whatever, and you're like picking your nose and don't care about anything, like, can you essentially come back from that?
I feel like you can, but it really depends on the person that's I guess judging you. For me at least, like I have like strong friendships with people that have made horrible first impressions on me. Like so I think it's for me, I think the stronger thing is just like what was like the last impression of what they did, like from what I remember. Say I haven't seen someone in 6 months. If they did something kind of like annoying or just like hard to deal with, then that'll just be my image of them for that whole like 6 month period. But if they like even if like my initial first impression was like, oh, they act like a child, but then like they got really mature and then I see them again after a long time and they're they're like grown up now and they can take care of themselves, then that'll be my impression of them from now on.
Hmm. And that's honestly just a nice way of looking at it. Because it means you can let go of certain things, certain chips on your shoulders. You
Some
can
people,
just eat the chip instead. What's it doing on your shoulder?
it's chilling there. Some people do like some people do go through like cycles where they're like, to me they're tolerable and then they're intolerable and then they're like okay again. So
Right.
I keep like a mental note of like just think like I just keep that in mind next time you do anything with that person. Like they might, you know.
Here's an interesting question. Do you think that cycle exists because of them or because of you?
Mm, it depends, cause I definitely like changed how I act around people. Well, it's more like depending on the group that I'm in.
Okay.
So someone like the same person might act differently if we're in, or yeah, that same like concept might apply to that person as well. Like maybe if we're hanging out in one group, they could be having like a personality that I don't like very much, and then like in another group or like alone, um, they could be acting like completely differently, and I'd like that. So it's a lot of variables, but
That's true. There are a lot of variables. So, with that, I would like to, I guess, move on to the next subject, I guess. Um, how do friends help and support us?
Um, Friends will pick us up when we're down. I feel like having a home of friends, I guess. Like to me, like having individual friends is really nice, but what's even nicer is like having like kind of a small community to go back to at the end of the day. Like every single day I'll go back, and then even if I'm feeling like shit, I'll still I'll have people to like pick me back up or just help me feel involved in something. I feel like having like a home in my friendships is vitally important to me.
Yeah, like a sense of community or just really just a backbone or a safety net.
Right. So just like some place that I feel comfortable in and like a small like group of like 4 or 5 people just makes me really comfortable to be in.
Yeah. And I think one of the most important things about a friend is kind of just like the freeness of it, the free aspect where I mean you shouldn't just say anything you want, but kind of that security that you theoretically could say anything to them. Any wacky, really out there idea, any like
And anything you've been thinking about, like you just like you don't have to like if you have like a really close friend, you don't have to keep anything in. You can just like tell them what you're thinking, even if it sounds kind of weird or
yeah,
awkward. You can just tell them that and they'll understand. So
exactly. It's like you don't need a filter. You can tell them the good news and they'll genuinely feel like right there with you, like excited about it. A good friend is somebody you can tell the bad news to also, and they won't make fun of you. They won't hold that against you. I mean, some friendships do, and I do want to point out those that work where like it's kind of built on like bickering or like like fun, playful teasing and everything. That's
right.
not really my cup of tea, but
That is my cup of tea, but depending on the person, like people respond better. Like some people might get cheered up if you try to release some of that levity. If you just try to make it a little brighter, some people might respond better to that. Other people
yeah.
just need someone to like listen, like to them.
Hmm.
Uh, some people they play like um, practical solutions. So some people just want emotional support. Maybe just try to like empathize, or if someone's like mad at someone, you have to be mad at that person too, even if
Mm,
you're not really mad at them. But
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that kind of goes back to what I said about it's almost like a trust reliance or not reliant. Well, kind of reliance, but alliance.
yeah, you have to like know who you're talking to, or else you might like hurt them. Because
Yeah,
if someone doesn't want to be teased when they're not feeling good, then and you tease them, you're just gonna make it worse.
right.
Someone
It's
someone
just
doesn't want
kind
you
of
to be
like
blunt. Yeah.
yeah, it's just like knowing them and reading the room as well.
hmm I'm not really sure what I'd respond well to. I feel I don't know. Half of me is like I want someone to listen to me. The other half of me is like um I want someone to empathize with me. I don't really care much for practical solutions when I'm venting to someone or just like telling them
Mhm.
things. So
Well, I mean, usually when you vent, it's more of just getting out what your feelings are and having somebody listening rather than, "Hey, I need you to solve my problems."
right.
But there are
Um
those kinds of people who there's like 2 types, the solvers and the copers. The solvers will be like, "Oh, you have a problem? Alright, well, you gotta do this and this and this. You gotta follow this, and you gotta read this book, and you gotta get up at 6 a.m. every day and go to bed at 8 p.m. every night and and jog in the morning and then eat Cheerios for breakfast and then work out for an hour at 3 p.m." and just like this really structured routine, but something practical to actually help you solve your problem. But then there's I would call them the copers who they don't really give you solutions per se, but they just help you deal with problems. They're usually more empathetic just because they like take their time and they try to make you feel better rather than trying to fix the problem. And I feel like sometimes you need both of those people, you know?
Definitely. And some people are definitely better at one sort of thing than the other type. So
Yeah. Um and with that, Do you think friends like are meant for different roles, like different friends for different things?
Um, well, it's always gonna be like a balance, right? But I
Yeah.
definitely think that some friends are like you want them to like respond differently to you than other friends because they're
Mhm.
just better at it, I guess.
Yeah.
Or you might just like want some or like one friend might have like similar experiences, so you might want like their experience with like your issue. Or it really just depends on the friend. Like a lot of friendships are pretty fluid in the way that they support each other.
Yeah.
For like some of my friends, like I usually don't talk about someone to most of my friends, but like to one of my friends, I like talk a lot about that other person because like might just be like an off chance. Like I might have just like done it once and I kept doing it, but like that's like my go-to person when I have problems with this other person. So
Mhm.
um yeah, and also I think I think it's good to be able to have, like, a friend that you can also, like, hang out with,
Yeah.
because even if you guys can have good conversations, you can't just, like, have a relationship built on just talking. At least that's what I believe. I mean, you can have, like, a pretty strong one, but if you're, like, texting someone for a whole year, it's still not it's pretty weak because I don't know, you might not enjoy, like, all of them, I guess.
Mhm. Just as a disclaimer, I would say that, like, of course, anybody can make anything work. There's different types of people. Like, we're not experts, of course, so like, that's just an opinion. But I do see what you're saying, just in the sense that, like, you kind of need some meat to the relationship. Like, it can't just be like, oh, we talk about things but like we never hang out or we don't really have a shared interest or something. Like, or I mean, you might have shared interests, but the act of actually doing something, like as we mentioned earlier, where you might be working with somebody or having a shared goal, or whether your friend is just somebody you play video games with at night, or you know,
Yeah. No, exactly. Because sometimes, like, you might have a really close friend, but you don't get a chance to talk to them a lot because you don't have a lot in common. Like,
yeah.
I feel like if you have the same kinds of problems, you can get a lot closer to that person because you can understand what the other person's going through. Or like even if something simple like video games, like, oh, I can't get better at Valorant, like that sounds really dumb, right? But you can definitely like
It
have
does sound dumb.
shut up. You can definitely have like um you can definitely grow closer to someone else just by playing like a simple video game with them or like learning from them or just like playing with them. Like it's not
Yeah. And with that, I also kind of want to talk about how kind of bringing us home a little bit with the different types of friends. I think usually it's good to have the all around well rounded close friends, and those are the people who are more versatile just in life. Like they're the guys you walk at the park with. They're the guys you play late night games with. They're the guys who you call at 1 a.m. when you're you're having problems and everything. Like just versatile. They're there for really the long haul, and they can do all sorts of things with you. But I also think there's a really important sense of, or like there's another group of niche friends that might not be as important as that, just because the close friends are more reserved and more rare to come by, which makes them more special, of course. But the niche friends should not be overlooked in that regard, because even though those are the people that you usually do like only one thing with, like the colleague you work with or the guy you work out with sometimes, like these people are just as special to you, like because they might not be as close with you, but you still have some shared aspect with them that is important to you, that you learn from, you grow from, and you rub off on them and everything.
like you treasure their time that you spend with them, even if it's
Yeah.
only for like one thing.
And sometimes you learn a lot from those niche friends that you can't learn with the well-rounded.
Mhm. Branching out with like the different types of friends you have, I think is also really important.
Right.
I know I said that you should keep your friend circle close, but um, sometimes your closer friends will drift away and you'll move to other people. Like, but not in like a flaky like, oh, I'm not gonna be friends with you again. It's more
No, yeah.
um like the circumstances. Like, say you have marching band season in the fall, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna be closer to your marching band friends during that time, and like
Mhm.
more distant from other friends because you won't be having like you won't be able to spend time with them. So like just being able to experience like a bunch of different types of people, groups of people, branching out, and then like not really establishing like a rotation per se, but just um, being able to be comfortable moving around if you have to.
Yeah. And with that said, do you think those friendships that might drift away a little bit, do you think those friendships stay true even after all that time or distance or absence?
Well, like I said before, with the last impression being important. Like if I had a lot of fun during like again marching band season or something with that group of people, maybe next time it's more like or it's more convenient to hang out with them, I'll like go back to it. But say my last impression of that friend wasn't very favorable, I might not. But it really just
Okay.
depends.
Okay. Yeah, that was just an interesting question on my mind because it's like I like to believe that the good friends you make are kind of timeless. Like whether I talk to you every day at school or I haven't talked to you in 10 years and then we just have a phone call like once after that whole decade, it's like they're still just as important to me, you know?
Right. But as much as I like personally, as much as I'd like to believe that, I feel like when you're apart from someone for a long time, they're going to get closer to other people, and you're gonna get closer to other people.
Mhm.
So you're just your interests might drift. You might change as a person. They might change as a person.
Yeah.
So like you could definitely just like not sour a relationship, but you might not have what you had before. Like if you try going back to it.
That's a really good point, man. Just like things do change and we do evolve and we grow and we do drift away. But I guess in the sense I was talking about was like what we had, what we shared will be timeless. So even if things change, obviously, like after 10 years, you're going to find other people. But, you know, like even if you do drift away and you become completely different people, uh, like your good buddy that you went to school with, you're now like a CEO of a really big company and they're like a farmer in a rural area of a different state or country. Like
You're
even
still
though
gonna
things
value
change,
right. You're still gonna value like the experiences and like the growth that you've made with them. So.
right? With that said, this is a point that I really wanted to get to. How do friends influence us as people?
I think a main one that a lot of people kind of gloss over is just our mannerisms, whether that be like verbal or just like like hand motions or like
Like
facial
body language?
expressions. Yeah, body language. That's a much better word for it. Um, like the more time I spend with a certain group of people, or like even just like watching someone, even though like the people that you watch, they're not your friend, but just I feel like it's more on time spent rather than just like strictly friends. The more time you spend with someone or like observing someone, the more you're gonna pick up on their mannerisms.
So that's an interesting point just because it's like the physical things that we do, you just kind of notice these subtle attributes to people. And how can we like if this guy has great posture, how do I fix my own, you know?
Yeah, or like actually it's more glaring like if somebody else has worse posture, I'm not calling any names. Anyway, somebody has like really bad posture, right? You'll be thinking more like, do I have that kind of posture? Rather than like if someone has really good posture, you won't notice. And that's usually like the thing with most things. Like if they
Well, you
have
can notice, but you gotta be paying attention for it.
that's
Yeah.
true. That's true. That's true. But if I really liked the tone of voice someone uses, or maybe I like the way somebody laughs or carries himself, I'll try to imitate it a little bit because I like taking parts of other people that I enjoy and then incorporating into myself.
Yeah. What other ways can people influence you?
Um, some subtle things like music tastes, tastes in just like media in general.
Just
Some
kind
people
of
can
like broadening your awareness to different things.
right, like maybe someone shows me Weezer, and before I was like, I don't like Weezer, but like now I'm like, I'm kind of down with Weezer, like just something like that. It's
Yeah.
might not be Weezer, but yeah,
Yeah, or just they introduce something new into your life that you might not have considered, or something that you were very adamant against that they change your mind over time.
yeah. I love people that force me to do things. That sounds really weird, but there's a lot of times where I just like didn't want to do anything, but then like once somebody finally forced me to do it, like I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Um, like one example is like my dad. He really wanted me to do Boy Scouts, really didn't like it. But he convinced me to go on this um sailing trip in the Florida Keys. I was just like not having it. Like I just like didn't want to be on the water or like do anything. But
right.
I had a lot of fun. I learned a lot of things there. So and yeah. And another one's like somebody dragged me into doing marching band. I was just kind of like AFKing in 8th grade. I was just kind of like, I'm here. I'm getting my
Away
credit. I'm
from
out of here.
keyboard.
Yeah, I was away from keyboard, sitting in that little semicircle in
Yeah,
band. But yeah, somebody dragged me to do marching band, and that's where I really like found like a love of like playing music, and like I stuck with marching band for the next 4 years. So I'm really thankful to people that like force me out of my comfort zone. I mean, it's a skill that I need to learn to do myself, but other people definitely make it a lot easier.
right. And not only do those experiences shape who you are, but it's almost like these friendships become who you are, you know?
Right. Like my point of view has been changed so many times just from talking to someone. Even if it's like they could say like a sentence to me, and like if that sentence struck a chord with me, I would probably change how I like look at things.
Yeah. I like to think of it like this, kind of bringing in some Carl Jung into the discussion of just like viewing. So Carl Jung has a theory that there's like your persona and then your shadow, and the persona is the mask of the actor. So basically, how you portray yourself in front of people, kind of like what we've been talking about this whole time, like thinking about impressions or like posture. These are all parts of your persona. The way you're basically an actor trying to hide your true self, and the shadow is all of the repressed things, the true form that you don't want to acknowledge, because it's usually your darker secrets or whatnot, like the things that you would think make you socially undesirable or hateable or anything. um so that's his theory with the persona and the shadow archetypes. But I like applying this to friendships in a way, because instead of the idea that he expresses of looking within yourself to find, like, to accept your shadow and embrace all aspects of yourself, like to find your true self, which is kind of the whole idea of this show, if you think about it, just becoming your best self. I think about it with friendships too, where it's almost, this is like completely my own theory, so this is not scientific at all, but just food for thought, I guess. You see all these different people that you don't know. Like you enter school for the first time, or think about like the next step that we're about to take is college. You're in this new place,
Hmm.
your familiar territory is no longer there. It's a new start, and there's all these new people. They're like the shadow that you've yet to identify. But once you identify them and accept them into your life, they become your friends. But I feel like it's when you have deeper bonds than that, like besides just the acquaintance that you throw a frisbee with every once in a while, they become part of you. You know what I mean?
Yeah, a little bit. Uh,
You're probably like,
I mean, I feel like we'd like talked about this with like how people like rub off on you and like how your views can change. But um, for the shadow part, do you think that's something that um that's something that like won't change? Like, do you think like someone's internal shadow is not the thing that changes, but instead it's their persona that changes?
that's a good question. I'd have to look more into his theory specifically, but definitely the persona can change just because you're always trying to regulate yourself, always changing, always evolving. Because you want to, at the end of the day, you want to be socially desirable and
Right.
confident within yourself.
Uh,
Um,
right now in like my stage of life, I think looking at the persona is much more interesting because I feel like it's a lot less static, more just amorphous or like dynamic than the shadow.
yeah,
Um, and it's something that like you can apply easier to your own life.
yeah.
Um,
Well, it is interesting. I'm not sure if the shadow is static or dynamic, as in changes, but
right.
um, But I both are equally as important because the shadow is like the spine of it all. Like if you can't embrace your shadow, if you forget about your shadow, it will essentially kind of torture you in a way.
Yeah, you just like won't be happy with yourself.
Yeah,
Um,
and I
I,
think well that's like the self goal that you have to go through is just accepting yourself. And that also helps you with friendships because you're not dragging others down and everything when you are collected.
yeah. Um, I think I think like the persona is um it's a way to like channel your shadow a little bit. Like
Yes. Yeah.
acting acting means that you're like completely disconnecting what you actually feel from what you're doing. But I feel like having a persona is a little bit different in the way that um if you're in like a different friend group or you're like talking to someone depending on like the person, your persona will change, but it'll always be like reflective of like your shadow, I feel. Like
Yeah.
uh you're just like trying to find like whichever way you think will be most pleasing or like most comfortable to uh whichever like part of your shadow would be most comfortable to share with them or
Mhm.
like in what way to share with them. I feel like that's like the job that your persona has.
Yeah. It's I think it all depends on how well you work on yourself at the end of the day because if you fail to accept your shadow or fail to kind of take out the skeletons in the closet, then the acting role of the persona definitely fits more of its definition where you're putting on an act. And you've seen people like that who just they don't like themselves or they don't accept themselves or they're too blinded by like wanting to be accepted or something because they don't accept themselves. You see this with bullies who don't have their stuff together. So it's just very very interesting and I feel like in a way these the people we meet they help us kind of understand like what our shadow is because I don't think you can exactly see it. It's like an element of the collective unconscious which is part of his theory that like there's a shared unconscious that like the word unconscious you can't see it, you don't even know about it, but with archetypes and just learning about yourself you can bring it to life. It's called the individuation process I believe, which is like turning the unconscious into conscious, and I'm going to stop saying conscious.
Thank you. Oh, I think other people are like paramount in doing that because like you need someone that can like a friend, you need someone that can call you out on your stuff. I don't
Mhm.
that's like a reason I don't like people who dance around um any of my faults or dance around their own faults. Like I like people who like if they don't like something, they'll like just straight up tell me. Some people can be annoying with it, but it always helps because if someone's
Just like
like,
blunt or direct.
like you're being really toxic right now, I'll be like, dang, that sucks. But I'll know I'll know that I am being toxic and I might have to change that. So it's
Yeah.
like a good indicator. Um, learning how to do it yourself is also really important. Like having friends to like kind of show you what you should be looking for is good because some things you just won't know that you're making a mistake on until like
Uh-huh.
somebody else tells you, right?
Yeah.
But at a certain point, you've got to start reflecting on yourself and saying, "Oh, I've been doing this specific thing a lot," and then um, changing that by yourself without any other help.
Right. That's a really good point. It kind of just starts with you.
Yeah. Friendships are just they do have their own like specific purposes, but I feel like a lot of friendships they help you realize or they like teach you how to do things yourself.
Hmm.
They do things for you, and then you realize that those things are good. Like say like they force me into doing new things or they um show me like what things I should be improving myself on. And then like later, after like hearing all this for like a while, I might start to do it myself. So I feel like having just an outside perspective at the start is super important.
Yeah. Because you can't always see what you're doing wrong. And also, if you think about it, if life was a story, it's like it's being told through an unreliable narrator because your mind, your inner voice is, I mean, you definitely have to listen to your inner voice at times,
That
but
thing's
it's,
biased.
yeah, it's so biased.
Yeah, and it's tough because your inner voice can be biased like for you or against you, and you just
Yeah.
yeah, like
With outside voices, they just kind of tell you what life really is.
right.
Like,
Like
"Hey, buddy."
even if like like outside perspectives could be like objectively wrong, they're still correct in telling you what they perceive about you. That's always
Yeah.
going to be correct. So that's like information that's not going to like there's no like change in like the validity unless they're lying, but hopefully they aren't.
Yeah,
Uh,
or, like, even if they're telling you something that's meant to be hurtful and not even true, like, you have this or I don't know, like, you're overweight even though you're clearly not overweight, but it makes you self-conscious. Now, it's very those matters can be very touchy, so I don't wanna just, like, discredit any of that. I'm not going to discredit any of that, um, because those are serious issues that eventually spawn into, like, just a slippery slope
complexes.
of a
Yeah.
long time of just being self-conscious.
So
But
you definitely have to like know, you have to have like enough not self-confidence, but enough like self-awareness to know when people are like just saying it to make you feel bad.
right, I was gonna say, like, at the end of the tunnel of that conflict, you eventually realize, "Oh, he was just being mean." But you can only reach that when you kind of believe in yourself. So, it's weird how the inner voice can correct the wrong outside voice, but the correct outside voice can correct the biased inner voice.
Right. I also feel like a lot of um going back to friendships, a lot of friendships they'll either reinforce an idea or like break apart an idea that you've had, and it's your job to kind of counteract it. Like if like a lot of people are hyping you up or something, or like they just like you just feel really like accepted, you might have like your confidence might be really high, and then you might do something like ballsy or like too yeah, like, you're too big for your boots. Like, you do something that you really shouldn't do, but you feel like you have the right to. You have to,
Yeah,
like your inner voice has to, like, humble yourself back down. Um, or say if, like, other people are, like, putting you down a lot, you have to have that inner voice to, like, bring yourself back up. So it's like a balance of, like, external information and, like, internal, self-reflection.
right. Well, that's like groupthink. Like, do I go along with the group or do I reject what they're doing?
Right. I think
So,
for oh, sorry. What were you gonna
uh,
say?
well, I just wanted to ask, like, with that said, just because I'm not sure how much time we have left, what makes a friend like if you were to break this down into like a definition, like according to your own opinion, of course, what do you think makes a friend a good influence in general?
Good influence. I could argue that even, quote, like bad influences are good influences because they teach you things, but
Mm,
um, good influence. Sorry, people that influence me well are people that I share my morals with and that help me grow as a person.
okay.
But
Do you think
but
somebody who you don't share morals with can teach you that? Not like somebody who's a bad influence, that teaches you
Okay,
kinda like
you have to define good influence for me because I feel like even some people that, like, you look at them and they're thinking, "Oh, they're not really doing the right thing all the time," you can definitely learn stuff from them and, like,
yeah.
improve as a person. So, like
Well, I guess just, like, good
good for you or good for society, I guess, like, that kind of influence
probably to you.
to me. Okay, then I think that as long as they're not boring, I think they're good influences.
Alright.
Okay, let me rephrase that. As if I meet someone that's, like, exactly like me and they don't teach me anything, I I don't think they are a good influence, but
Okay.
I haven't really experienced, like, a objectively bad influence on my life, like, as in the form of a person, but I
Okay.
might later on, but I can definitely see, like, someone gets you into drugs or, like, just unhealthy behavior, I could definitely see that.
Yeah, and that is definitely, bias that you can't help there, but that is a good point.
Right, I haven't experienced many bad influences, so this is kind of a tough question. So,
Yeah.
I usually just have enough, like, forethought to, like, use, like, a first impression to see I should be friends with the person or I shouldn't be friends with this person. So I
Yeah,
yeah.
kind of like a smart prejudgment even though
Mhm.
that can be
That's what first impressions all for are, like, all about, like, if, um because even though they don't give you the full scope of, like, that person, they can help you, like, kind of sift out the, like, people that might be bad influences
yeah.
to you.
But can somebody who does bad things, like, in their own time, not to you, but just, like, like, does drugs or something, can they still be a good influence to you?
As long as they're not pushing that on me. I know a lot of people that I don't think they do good things or they don't do the best thing a lot of the time, but they don't treat me badly. So to me, they're not a bad influence. And um, I can tell that they're not, um, that I shouldn't be following what they're doing, but they still like have a positive influence on my life. But
Right,
I don't think I can consider a lot of those people my friend because I usually just have fun hanging out with them, and that's it. I don't usually
right.
um go any deeper with them.
And that goes back to, like, having the different roles. So, really, this all just connects.
Right.
So,
Um,
I guess to bring us home, um, like, by tying everything together that we talked about today, like, how would you define a friendship?
friendship. Somebody that I'm able to have a strong conversation with about my problems and their problems, and um, someone that I'm in like that second layer of trust with, not like the information trust, but the other trust. I feel like
Yeah.
that's what defines a good friend, or
Okay,
just a
so
friend in general.
okay. So it's interesting just because it's a bit more defined, but along the same lines as when I originally asked you that.
Yeah, my opinion might change, but um, it's gonna take either more thinking or just more experience to change that.
Right. But you'll always meet new people and strengthen those old and new bonds and
Right.
you'll
It's
find your
hard because you definitely have to pick and choose. You can't be friends with everyone. You can't be a strong um companion to everyone. You have to really think about who you're gonna keep, I guess.
right. Well, you also need to find friends that care about you and support you.
Yeah, yeah. Um, for sure. Like you need to be able to trust this person and know that when you're when you fall and they can get you back up.
Mhm. So yeah, let me just check the time here.
By the way, we started this podcast at 4:20, just letting you know.
Well, we started recording at like 4:30.
Shh, it's cooler this way. Let it happen.
Oh, please.
Don't
I
tell
don't need this.
I know.
Uh, so yeah, anything else you want to add before we kind of wrap up things?
I think we've pretty much covered all of our bases for friendships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any advice to the audience about like
Um,
making friends or how to pick and choose, or just overall relating to the topic?
I don't really have much advice.
Come on, man.
Okay. I feel like you should try to have a conversation with everyone that you meet. Well, as long as you can see that they're not like out, like just like straight up violent or something. But just like try to have at least one conversation, see if you like something about them, and then like try to like hang out with them one time and see if you can take that further. Because the more people that you give chances to, the better friends you'll have.
Right. Or like really you just need to be open at the same time.
Right. Like if your first or second experience with someone, if you're able to open up to them, like if they're not able to open up very well and you're the one that can open up, whoever takes that first step can really just decide if there's going to be a friendship or not. So
Right.
give that a try.
Well, I also meant open in the sense of just being open to ideas. Like
Oh,
if you're a very judgmental person,
right.
like yeah, like it'll be harder to relate to people or to set up some sort of friendship system.
Always take a bunch of skepticism when you hear about stereotypes. Like maybe, I don't like theater kids. Like, don't listen to that stuff. Just like at least try to like be friends with one of them. See, like, because
Right.
usually the stereotypes just don't they just take away from what you're able to get from people. So
That's a really good point too, just because everybody's an individual. And we're all different. I mean, stereotypes exist for a reason. So like on average, most theater kids might be loud or obnoxious. I remember talking to James about this all the way back in the introversion episode, but really they're just all different. They're all unique personalities, and who knows? They'll be maybe they'll become your best friend.
yeah, like not all band kids are weird. Some of them are cool. You're looking at one, but
There's definitely the weird ones though.
yeah, no, there sure are. But yeah, the stereotype usually doesn't determine everybody in that group. So yeah.
Right. Or just always try to broaden the horizon, because
Try to get yourself into activities if you have trouble making friends, because that'll give you like a common thing to talk to other people about.
right, and just like working on something like that shared common goal.
Yeah. Well, that's all I have today.
Yeah. Well, I guess then we can conclude this. So, thanks for joining us, Arjun.
Oh, no problem, Casey. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we don't really have anything else to say, but it's been a really nice time talking to you about friendships.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Arjun's been a good friend of mine for a while, but I'll save it for the bio in the description. And so make sure you read that, all right, buddy?
Make sure. Yep, I sure will. Make sure to like and subscribe and share on all your social media. There we go.
All right, I guess if we're doing this now, click that little bell icon.
Click that little bell icon. Exactly.
All right, I guess took episode 11 for me to finally give in to the clout.
I got you.
But yeah, thanks everybody for listening. I'll see you guys next time.